And we're live.
Hi. Yay. Hi, Trixie. Hi, Tim. So happy to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like singing a good morning song. Like, I used to teach preschool, and we would start every day with good morning, good morning.
Because it's really early. Both of you are from San Diego, aren't you? So
We are.
it's like stupidly early o'clock in San Diego.
I have not woken this early in a very long time. I was actually impressed that like my alarm went off and I was like, oh, okay, it's time to wake up. Rather than like, oh, let's hit snooze just a little bit. Maybe like once or twice. So yeah. I'm rather surprised.
It's early. I show up like half awake to the show, and I don't what's happening. I don't know. Well, let's welcome Trixie to the show. I'm so excited to chat with her. I've had the opportunity to speak with her a couple times about mental health and about her heart for advocacy. But Trixie, can you tell us some of your points that you'd like to introduce our new audience to? Tell us about you.
Oh, I'm like, and now the earliness is kicking in. So like Christelle said, like I'm a mental health advocate. I live with mental illness, so I have CPTSD. I also have anxiety and depression, which is why I became an advocate. And so my digital guise is the thoughtful beast, but on Twitter it's the thoughtful Trix because someone took the thoughtful beast and will not relinquish it, even though they don't use it. Twitter world.
Yeah.
So mental health is a big part of my life, and I love to speak to it. I love to speak about it. And on the other side, I'm also a creative. So I'm a dancer and choreographer, and recently I got into film, specifically dance film, but I also still do like normal film, because basically I just didn't want my career to be at the hands of other people. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait for opportunities like that. That's just that's not who I am. I also don't necessarily fit in exactly a Hollywood box or anything. So, and which is fine with me. And there's nothing wrong with Hollywood, but I didn't want to wait for opportunities. I wanted to create them more so for myself. I got into dance film, and when COVID's over, I'll be making my first like professional short one whenever it's safe to be out and about. I have producers signing on and everything, so it's gonna be great. And I've basically married the two parts of myself, which is like the artistic side and the mental health advocacy side. And so I make work about mental health, mental illness. One of the last pieces I made was called Disquietude, and it was basically about how I can't sleep. It was basically about my anxiety and insomnia. And so it was like me, like as a dancer trying to sleep, and I had 4 other dancers with me who basically like kept me awake. And it was like nightmarish because I put their costumes were just like basic black, but then I put tulle, like black tulle over their faces. Like they had these big black tulle bags over. So it was cool because they could see, but it gave the illusion of something creepy.
Yeah. There's something beautiful. Two things here. We have a really neat artistic scene here in San Diego, indie artistic scene. I don't know how many people actually realize that. And so we just have a great artistic community, whether it's dance and art, and it covers quite a few genres. But it's really neat to see how you tell story through dance, and how you interpret story through dance. I remember seeing one of your dances, and must have been early in COVID or early in lockdown. Can you kind of tell us how you create? Do you do it spur of the moment? Do you design it ahead of time? Tell us how you create a dance to interpret a story or to tell a story.
Ooh. So how do I explain this?
It's quite beautiful to see. And I have a best friend who does the exact same thing. And I've literally watched her just get up and do it. and so it was however you do it.
So okay, so I'll have an idea, right? Like say with disquietude, I'm like, I want to make something about anxiety because I feel like this and I want to portray it. So I'll have that idea. And then creating choreography in my head, if it's going to be like a group piece, which I love group pieces because I love dancing with other people. Like that's my favorite part of dance. Like the nonverbal communication and the understanding and the trust that you need to dance with people is like my super favorite. And what you're seeing online is something that I made, and it had to be a solo because it was during quarantine. But for either one, when I'm making something, I start with like an image that I have. So certain images for this one, because it was part of a competition and we had like rules, like we had to be in one place. Or my understanding was that we had to shoot in one place, which apparently was not what everyone else understood, but it's cool. I pictured like my doorway and like, because this is more about my anxiety about like going outside, obviously, right? It's COVID, it's quarantine, and the fears of like wanting to be part of the world, but also like, and it sounds dramatic, but it's not, obviously, like I don't want to die. You know, like I don't want to actually go out and die. So being afraid and have everything like stuck at home, that feeling. So like the feeling of looking out into the doorway, or the doorway being like a huge symbol, was what drew me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make things around that. And my head, my English AP teacher, when I was in high school, said my brain was like this. Which apparently was a really bad thing and horrible for school, which I don't agree with. But that's kind of how my brain works when I am making choreography. There's like these different images I see in my head. And then I'm just like, oh no, yeah, that. And then I go with there and then try to glue things together. And I hope that somewhat makes sense, but at least like that's the start of my choreographic process.
You see it in your head. I've talked to you before, so I know that in some ways we're similar. I'm super ADHD, but you'll see things in your head, and to try to actually explain it and verbalize it is two totally different things.
Oh yeah, dude, like it's so weird too, because like, again, like I love choreographing group pieces, and the things that my dancers sometimes get mad at me because I'm like, can you do it again? And they're like, but you're not even looking at us. But I'm like, no, I am. But it's because I won't look directly at them either. Like I'll look off to the side, but it's because I'm trying to see if they're creating this picture or shape that I want. Because if I look directly at them, I start staring at different things, or I try to like correct things, but I'm like, no. Am I actually making my overall picture or not? So like I kind of like stare this way and it's happening, and I can see it better that way. If that makes sense.
It's such a creative mind. I know.
Yeah, like because like I'll see like a fanning of people or like different things traveling around, and so like I'll want to make like a whoosh or something, and so those are the things I see, and then I have to interpret it and be able to explain it way better than now. My dancers, so it's actually created.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about mental health. Okay. Why did you decide to become an advocate and get your story out there?
So again, I do live with mental illness, and I started therapy in my early 20s when I got to college, because I basically reached this breaking point. And in my head, the breaking point was basically my brain fully developed and I could comprehend everything that had happened to me. And I was away from home. So I was away from the things that happened in my town and the things that were not so great and gave me trauma. So I feel like the room away from it, and the fact that I was like older and I could finally comprehend, like I broke. Like I could no longer, like all the coping mechanisms, which I didn't know what that was at a point. Basically everything I was doing to be okay just would not work anymore. So I've been in therapy for a really long time, in and out. And at some point in my late 20s, I found myself okay enough to talk about it publicly. And I kind of realized that for me, like, that was a gift and a privilege, because, you know, talking about yourself and your mental illness is like so difficult, especially when like people don't really understand it. It's mixed in with a lot of things. It's mixed in with a lot of different things, like different parts of your life. And people don't really understand it. And so I was just like, oh, but I feel okay enough to do it. So I was like, I'm going to do it. Cause I don't want people to suffer like I suffered. And a lot of that suffering was like just being afraid to talk about it, because I was really afraid that no one would believe me. I was also really ashamed, which I feel like, you know, people shouldn't feel, especially like thinking back to me, like as a child and then a teenager, and how much like I held within myself, and looking back to be like, man, that shaped me in a horrible way. Like when I look back at myself as a high schooler, I was such, can I curse?
Yeah.
Is that okay here?
Yeah.
I was like such an asshole. Like I was such an uppity asshole, but I wasn't like an ass, like, okay. So because I had gone through so much trauma, and I was trying really hard to be a good person. Like even now I'm like, it's really important for me to be a good person. But as a high schooler who had gone through like years of trauma, that all made me basically like really self-righteous, because I was like, a lot of bad things happened to me, and I'm still not an asshole. I'm still not mean to other people. I treat people really well. So I thought. And so if I went through all this and I don't complain and blah, 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 then neither can you. Like your stupid boy problems are stupid, you know, and like whatever, da, 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 like it's not a real problem. Like let's focus on like school and da, 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 da. So I was just I had really high standards for everyone. And it made me an asshole, really. Like one of my biggest regrets is that later I figured out that being like that kept some of my friends from really talking to me when they needed a friend, because they were afraid I was going to judge them. And I was just like, well, fuck. Like like that was kind of like a tipping point for me. Like I already started to change, but then when I realized that, I was like, oh, okay. Like that was me being impacted by my mental illness, and my trauma was me trying to overpower it so that I was still a good person.
Yeah.
However I define that in my head. So, like that's like, I wasn't necessarily like doing drugs or getting into trouble and violating the laws, but it's like, no, I alienated myself from people. I definitely hurt people. Like I hurt people. I was like judgmental, I wasn't kind when I could have been kind. And so I don't want that for other people either. It's and right, mental illness is so complicated, because that's such like a weird thing to think. It's like, actually it made me too stern. And people don't think about that, right? We only see what we see in TV, where it's like, oh, this person has now become an addict because of their trauma, or this person is now just heavily depressed, and it looks like this one way. So with me and my advocacy, like I want to erase the stigma and also show that like mental illness looks different on everyone. It's not simple. It's not simple. There's no one monolith that shows everything, especially like with mental illness. It's just really not. So that's why I do it. And I do love talking about it.
I love that you love talking about it. You helped me talk about CPTSD for the first time ever when I came on your show. And so talking to you and having that in common, both of us, I think in the midst of it, we're like, oh my gosh, like we're speaking the same language. I totally get what you're saying. And so you have that, okay, someone understands me. And that is so important. And that's why I love what you do, because you bring people on from all cultures, all walks of life, and I give them a platform to tell their story. And the common thing, I think, is mental health. And so people can watch and say, I'm not alone.
Yeah. And like, I love doing that. You know, like, it's so weird because I was talking to my friend the other day, and I was like, so like, I want to humanize mental health, and that's my thing. And it's weird on my show where it's like, that's what I do. And apparently also like, I humanize people, which sounds really weird, but like, especially everything that's happened in America with Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. I'm like, no, it's important because apparently humans need to be humanized. But it's true. And like, the easiest way to do that is just to let people talk and be them. Because like, there are a lot of similarities between all of us. Like, yeah, we are all different, but you know, everyone does go through trauma. Everyone has their challenges. And it's so interesting. So like, I go on Reddit. I don't know if you guys go on Reddit, but like, I go on Reddit and I like to go, you know, I like to see like both sides of what people are thinking. Yeah. And now that all the bots are gone and the election's over, everything's really calmed down. So you actually can see what everyone is actually thinking. And it's just like, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of people wanting the same things, but we're just not really exposed to each other. So we think, you know, there's a lot of polarization here. We think, oh, that side's the enemy and they hate everybody and and that hyperpolarization isn't helpful. Like, even though there's still stuff on like on sides, like whatever, you know, like I don't agree with everything that everyone has to say from any side. But it's important to know at the end of the day that we're all still human, and really we all just want to live and be happy and left alone.
I think Christelle's actually secretly a lizard alien, so
I wouldn't be surprised.
I was gonna ask a question when I got a word in edgewise. Why did you pick dance and film as your kind of artistic expression? And was that something to do with the fact you were talking about mental illness, or is it just because you think you're better at dance or you enjoy dance and film more? So why not write poetry or sort of write a novel or spray paint the White House with graffiti or something along those lines? Why did you choose dance and film as your kind of artistic mechanisms, so to speak?
So as much as I obviously can speak now in front of people, that was not always the case.
Yeah.
And I do still, to this day, I still think that I'm better at communicating what I feel with dance than I am with my words. Except that, so I love dance and dance theater where like, you know, you can have like, oh my gosh, more of the elements of like normal theater. So like a set and a background, and there can be words. I love that too. I basically love visual storytelling. Like I love stories, like, cause dance is already abstract, but for me, like I always love when there's a story, and there doesn't have to be a story, but for me, like I love when dance is trying to communicate something. And when I was younger, I really, you know, I was really shy. Like I was really shy. Like I can still be shy, but like I was like really shy. Like I am not sure how many times I don't think I ever raised my hand to answer a question in school. Like from like kindergarten to like through college. Like I'm pretty sure I never raised my hand unless, you know, you were forced to, because they're like, everyone has to answer. So like I didn't want to talk, and I felt uncomfortable talking. So dance was like more natural to me. And then with film, it just made sense. I was like, it's a visual storytelling. And really that's my medium that I love. Like I love words too. Like, and I actually do write poetry. I'm trying to get brave enough to share it. That's where I am right now. I'm trying to get brave enough to share it. But with movement and stuff, like that's always just been more comfortable for me. And I love it. And again, like I love moving with people. I love the nonverbal communication. Like the trust that you have to have with people. Like one of my favorite things is like I do love partnering, but I also love when you're just dancing in unison with people and you don't even have to count. Like you are all just together and you can feel that energy where everyone is just like so in it together. And I love that. Like I love being part of a community is basically what I realized. Like I love being in things that are bigger than myself.
This is why I'm looking for Christelle because she seemed to be asking questions like a machine gun earlier, and now she's like, oh, God.
I was giving you a chance, Tim. This is what happens when you have a co-host. You want to be so
polite,
over, but then we're like, I'm talking too much, and I realize that. So. Tim, your turn.
Okay, so I've got another turn then. So we've talked about dance and film, and well, I used to be into film a little bit in terms of writing screenplays and stuff, but then I realised I preferred writing novels and other things because you can self-publish them easier than film. Like film is going that way a lot easier. But what would you say? Like, where do you want to go with film? Are you kind of just happy making sort of short films and putting them on the internet, or do you want to start making like feature films and things that people could see at the cinema in the distant future when people can go to theatres and the like? I mean, where do you see yourself going with film in terms of your artwork, so to speak?
So my creative life goals are basically have you guys seen the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
No.
So basically it's a musical TV show about mental illness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it was like on the CW. It only has like 4 seasons, but it's really good. And those are like my goals. Cause I'm like, this person on mainstream TV made a musical comedy show about having mental illness.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, and so like, that's what I want to do. Like, when this is all lifted, like I'll be able to produce like that short film by making is going to be like a 15-minute short film that I'm actually going to we're making it to put into like actual film festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully like launch myself into bigger things. But I want to do dance film, but also I want to make a web series basically, or just a series. Like if I could have it my way, that's what I would want to make. Like I love film and I love TV too. And TV to me, like I love it a lot because, you know, you can show a person's life. Like you can show an arc.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to keep mentioning TV things like Grey's Anatomy, right?
Yeah.
It's been on for 17 freaking years. So you've seen Meredith Grey start out as what she would also describe herself as a slutty intern to like, spoilers everybody, but like widowed mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, widowed mother that is now like into her own dating life, but really like into her career, and like seeing that full arc is so satisfying. And you can do that with TV. And so I would love to like make a TV series and show like mental health and different people with mental health, because it's like so weird. It's like the same people and the same kind of stories, or you know, like depression has to look like a certain way. Also, like to be very like blunt, like it's also like apparently like they have to be white and then it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like to be sellable, it's like, oh, you can have like a mental illness or depression, but you also then have to be white. because then it's okay. Preferably blonde. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And so like representation, like as a Filipino American, like that's also just really important to me. Like even not just like as a Filipino, because no one's gonna guess that I'm Filipino, but guess what? I am a version of Filipino. I'm actually my bloodline's actually indigenous to the Philippines.
Yeah.
But you would never guess. And so like that kind of stuff like might be little, but it's not. At least it's not to me. Like I love that. I love showing all the different faces of people, and the fact that again, like mental illness like exists everywhere. Especially, you know, like for a lot of Asian and Pacific Islander, we're like very hush hush about like what's happening behind closed doors, which can be very toxic.
Yeah.
So again, for me, that's like another important part, another important thing, and I would love to have that on TV or in a movie, or and in movies. There you go.
I want to ask you, we're in the midst of a very, very, very long season lockdown, crazy, like no one ever thought in a million years we would be here worldwide, globally, together, kind of in the midst of this time where we can't move about, can't talk to people like we used to be able to. But we kind of see hope at the end, I think. I think we're coming there. We're getting there. But Trixie, with everything you've gone through and with being an advocate and with having your own show and having the opportunity to dance and tell your story, what advice can you give to people, or what words of wisdom can you give to people, especially those struggling with mental health in the midst of this insane global season?
Don't force things. So it actually took me until like maybe like mid-December to realize that I've still been playing into like hustle culture. And that a lot of that mentality, like, it doesn't motivate me. It actually makes me feel like shit about myself. And so it took me until like mid-December to be like, dude, it really is okay to take a break, because like my life has changed so much. I was telling my roommate about it yesterday. I'm like, it's weird because everything blew up, and you know, I was also working like almost 2 years on trying to get into a dance company, and now I'm blacklisted because I told those people that basically, yo, you still racist even though you don't think you are. So you know, like, so that's gone. Like, that's gone. And I don't think I ever grieved that. And you know, there was a lot of I mean, it wasn't that simple. It was like I had a group going on. We were trying to, you know, discuss things and be like, hey, basically, you know, like, we all have things we have to work on. It can't just be like, well, I did work in the 70s and I'm not racist and da da da. And I'm like, I feel like you're missing the point. Like, let's look at our actions and our behaviors and like listen to like the people who are actually Black. Like let's do that. But I never grieved that. And I had a lot of like bad backlash. I was called behind my back like an angry minority. And I'm like, what is that? You know? And so like there are so many things that had happened and so many things that just like happened in the world. And you know, like great things came from that. Like I'm part of an affinity group, like for San Diego dancers. Like we got more politically active. And so like there are good things that happened. But I think I finally realized that like all that took a toll on me. Like, and obviously just the pandemic in itself, and knowing that all these people are just dying every day, like that took a toll on me. And so, dude, take a break. Like, that's really like, be kind to yourself. It's okay. Like, and that's my biggest advice, especially to like any sort of creatives, any sort of creators. You know, like a lot of people are like, oh, yo, hustle. Like, this is the time where you can make all the shit. But it's just like, great if that makes you happy. Like if that actually makes you happy, and that's actually like restoring your soul, hell yeah. But if you just feel like really pressured and you just feel like really down, or if you just feel like I'm just doing things to do them now because then that's what you do, you know, that's what you do, then don't. Like, I'm really thinking about like why I make the things I make. I'm taking like a break off of YouTube, which I was really nervous about, but I'm like, but why? Like, that's it. These are my things. Like, it's my creativity, my like passion. Like, I should do it if it sustains me, not if it ruins me. And I'm feeling like I have to do something because that's what you're supposed to do. So, you know, take your time, take a break, breathe, like be kind to yourself, let yourself grieve this whole year. You know, like I know a lot of us are like, fuck you, 2020, never looking back. But like everyone lost a lot. Our world is super different now and it's super scary. So it's okay to feel that and to be in that and be impacted. And it's okay to reevaluate yourself and take the time to do that. And I'm doing that now, which again, like it does feel really weird because, right, everyone feels like the vaccines are here. It's getting better. But when I think about it, I'm like, it's at least going to be 6 months, if maybe not a year, like until like, you know, we're actually like maybe all vaccinated. So like there is time. And at the end of the day, no matter like what you do and like what your goals are, what your aspirations are, like if that's just not making you happy, if you are not happy in your life, like you do not have to like stay, you know, like reevaluate. Like that's okay. I think so many people are afraid to like pick something in the first place, just pick something. And then they're afraid once they pick that they're like, nah, dude, I picked it. I'm gonna double down and just keep going no matter what happens. Like, why? Like, does it make you happy? Like I've changed so much. I used to be a personal trainer for like this long. Like I studied and everything. I took extra courses because to be a trainer in America, technically you wouldn't have never ever had to like ever work out and still pass this test and be certified. I did extra training in person because I was like, that's dumb. You know, I spent all that time and money. I did it and then I realized this is not for me. And that's okay. Like, I'm 32 and I still fight with like, I'm behind, you know, mental illness and feeling like you're behind and you're never going to be like normal people. But really, like, life is long. You can change yourself so much. So like, it's okay. It's okay to give yourself this time to relax. Okay, I think I'm just rambling now,
it's
so I'm
good.
gonna stop.
It's so relatable, I think. We have to end the show, but Trixie, tell us really fast where we can find you online.
So you can find me on Twitter. You can find me right there at Thoughtful Tricks. You can find me on my website, which is thethoughtfulbeast.com. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube and just keep searching thethoughtfulbeast.com and I'll come up.
Well, thank you very much. And could you do a brief 10-second interpretive dance to say goodbye to everybody? And then we'll,
Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
I hope you understood what I was saying.
Thank you, Trixie.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
Cliche shit, you know.
Well, that was